Boy, do I have a video for you guys today. We have an engine, wiring to pull out of this car, and panels to cut. So we got some big stuff going on today for this mini project, and suffice to say, once I'm done cutting panels off, this thing's going to be even more mini. Let me grab that engine and we'll talk about that real quick, and then we'll talk about the wiring and panels that we're going to cut off this car. We have an engine. Alright guys, this right here is the power plant for the Mini. This right here is a K24 RBB3. So it has the 3-lobe VTEC in the cylinder head. I had some people on Instagram get a little confused when I talked about this before. It is the JDM version of the K24 A2A. Am I saying that right? A2? A2A? Anyway, when I say this is the JDM version, yes, I know that Honda is a JDM company. And when I say JDM, I'm talking about JDM in the sense that the K24A RBB3 is specifically, like, these motors came from Japan. They were put into cars in Japan, and this motor came from Japan to the US. The K24A2 was in all the cars that Honda sent to the US. So when I say it's JDM, I mean it's JDM in a literal sense. It came from Japan. I am aware that Honda is a JDM brand, so sorry for any confusion there. That's what I mean when I say JDM. But yeah, so this is probably pretty much one of the most desirable K24s you can get on the market, and that's why I decided to pick this. This motor should be capable of roughly 195 to 205 horsepower in stock form, just the way you see it, like this. By the time I'm done with it, I think we'll be pushing a little more than that. I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to keep this thing fully stock just to get this car on the road and then pull the motor back out and modify it, or even have maybe this motor sit stock and buy a second one, build that motor, and then always have a spare motor in case we blow something up doing something crazy. So yeah, there's options, but this is going to be our motor to start. I'm still waiting on transmission. I need to get that all dialed in, so that'll be the last piece we're waiting on before we can start building the subframe for this, is transmission and motor mounts. But we have this here, so at a certain point we may end up, I would ideally like to do the timing chain and water pump. Since this is a JDM motor, meaning it's from Japan, the alternator is a Japanese alternator. As funny as it sounds, the ones in the US market are different. So if I were to go to the parts store and say, hey, I need this alternator, they're not going to have the right one that I need for my car. So you can get a water pump off a US motor and just pull the whole housing and everything out, put it on, and then it will accept an alternator that you would be able to get locally available to me. So that's one thing I'm going to do just for ease of use and everything. It does have an electronic throttle body on it. I do plan on having this car be drive-by-wire, so that's nice. I'm not sure if we're going to stay at the stock size or if we're going to end up putting a bigger throttle body on it at some point. So that remains to be seen, but this is a motor we have. It is on an engine stand now. I may throw up some B-roll footage of when this thing first arrived when I unboxed it. There's a full video on that on the Instagram page, LRCC BRO, if you guys want to check that out. So this is our motor, this is our power plant, K24 swap going in the Mini. This is about the biggest engine I think you can fit while still keeping the front end of these stockish. By that I mean you're not cutting the firewall. We may end up having the front actually get extended slightly in order to fit this engine as it is a little bit longer. I have a couple ideas on how I'm going to make the exhaust as kind of flush to the block as I can, so that I can set this as tight to the firewall as possible. But again, that's stuff that remains to be seen. And I also may look at, as far as intakes going, seeing what I can get that's kind of the tightest, packaging. Because with these motors, it's not necessarily the width, although that is, one constraint. It ends up more becoming the depth in the engine bay that it takes up, because of these cars, you don't have a whole lot of room forward and backward as far as depth goes. So that is my main concern with putting this motor into this car. I think we're going to be able to make it work though. So it's going to be a squeeze, but we're going to do it. But yeah, motor is here. Exciting things. It means we're one step closer to getting this thing on the road. And that's what this is all about. So let me drag this thing off camera, and then we'll talk about some of the wiring, different things that we got to strip out of the car before we can start cutting. So let's talk about what else we need to strip out of this car. I need to pull wiring out of the engine bay and everything in order to, you know, have it be safe to cut. I'm not going to be using any of the OEM wiring in kind of my build, so to speak. Since I'm going to a standalone ECU, all the like wiring for the lights, wipers, all that type of stuff will be controlled through some other, keypad / power system and stuff. I'm not going to be trying to use any of the OEM parts. Trying to get an old car like this on some sort of BCM controller and then merging that into the ECU becomes more complex than I think it's worth. So I'm going to kind of have more of a direct on-off setup for some of the things and use maybe some more universal parts to modernize some of the controls for the lighting and the windshield wipers and that type of stuff. So yeah, we got to strip all the wiring out of the engine bay. I'm not sure if we're going to do the entire interior as far as stripping wiring goes. That might be in another video. But as you can probably see here, I have this kind of white line going on here. That line is basically everything on this side of that is getting cut off. And I will walk you guys around and show you where that white line runs and exactly where we're going to cut. Not everyone is a fan of the way that I am removing the front end of this car, and that's completely fine. It's not a resto mod. This car I'm building is for autocross, and it's meant to be raced and abused. It's not a perfect classic, and I'll show you on the other side the reason that I don't feel really guilty about cutting this car up. Another quick thing that I want to note, because I think that this confused a few people, I put up an Instagram reel, which was, to be fair, a little bit clickbaity, of me holding my grinder with a certain cutting blade on it that I think a lot of people thought was a concrete cutting blade. It's not, I promise you. I know more than that. I'll show you the blade on there, and then I'll show you one in the package to hopefully make it make a little more sense. I have the grinder right here. Unfortunately, this disc is a little worn down, so it's kind of hard to read what it is. But essentially, what it is, I don't know if I can get the camera to focus on it. It's a diamond edged metal cutting wheel for, basically fabrication use. I do have another one on the workbench back there that is new in the package, and I'll grab that and show you guys that because I actually really like these blades. I've used them on a couple of projects now, and it's super nice to not be wearing through cutting blades every 5-10 minutes. So let me grab one of those and I'll show you guys that and explain a little bit more what I mean. All right, this right here, I don't know, turn this light down a little bit if you guys can see that better, is the cutting disc that I use on this grinder. And I made a video where, I spun this thing up and kind of pointed it at the fender where I wanted to cut and was like, should I do it, should I not? I know, a little bit clickbaity, but just was feeling bored that day. It's not a concrete blade, it's a metal blade, kind of all-purpose universal blade that takes way longer to dull out than your conventional cutting wheel, and I really like them. Is it maybe the 100% proper tool for the job? Maybe not, but I'm not really worried about it. I'm cutting, and I'll show you this guys in a second, where I'm cutting is roughly like 1/4 to 1/2 inch from where all of the seam welds are, all the tack welds and everything running along the body to hold all the body panels together. And the reason that I'm doing that is that gives me a 1/2 inch to a 1/4 inch to grind flush to kind of where the seam welds are. And I think a lot of people are confused why I'm doing that. It wouldn't really make sense if I was planning on welding new panels on that I would be cutting like that and then welding instead of just drilling all the tack welds. The reason that I'm doing that is because I'm going to be having a composite front end, one piece, being built for this car, which will mean that the fenders, the hood, everything is all one piece, and that will all hinge up either back or forward, and it will have kind of more of a one-piece front-end bonnet, so to speak. And the reason that I want those seam welds there is that gives something for that to kind of rest flush against, and helps with fitment and stuff a little bit more. It'll make more sense once I have that and I'm going to install it and everything. So until then, trust in the process. I know it's a little painful to watch and a little confusing, but the front end is coming off this car. All right, so I'm not sure exactly where that last clip left off, but we're gonna be working on the wiring and the front end removal on this car now. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so I have the hood off the car, it's over there. This engine bay looks a little nasty. I promise it'll start to come together a little bit here. I have to basically take all of this wiring, some of the brake / power steering, brake booster, clutch. To be honest with you, I'm not sure. Some of this mini stuff confuses me. Forgive me. We're getting rid of it. It doesn't apply to any of the stuff we're doing going forward. So I'm just going to try and pull as much of this kind of loose wiring and rat's nest stuff out of here so that when I'm cutting on this, I don't actually damage something. I'm also going to try and pull this headlight out because I'd like to hold on to it and not destroy it. I did not get the other one when I got the car, so that is a downside, but I think we can still make it work. So yeah, I'm going to throw you guys up on a tripod, and this will probably end up being a time lapse of me stripping all this stuff. So let's get into it. Alright guys, so I just stripped out all of the wiring and removed all the hardware that holds the front end of this on, and I think we're to a point where we need to make some cuts before we can really make the next step forward. officially got in the front end of this car. Cracked loose. Holy shit, guys, what have I done? Alright, hopefully this helps you guys start to visualize where we're going with things here. As you can see, these obviously need to go in order to get that guy in here. I'm not going to cut further back than this seam right here. I'm just going to bring this piece off because there is some kind of bracing stuff going here on the firewall, and I want to try and preserve some of that if possible. And I do think when I make the new subframe, it's going to tie into some of the original pieces that would have been here. So the subframe is semi-removable, but it will still be tied into the roll cage. It'll make more sense later on. But yeah, got our motor here and our car there, so it's starting to come together. And yeah, hopefully this is helping you guys visualize where this thing is going. But yeah, I'm gonna probably clean that up. Alright guys, this is officially the end of the video. It's been a while. I gotta wrap this up, but I appreciate everyone watching. Thank you all, and you know, if you guys enjoy this content, please consider subscribing, giving the video a like, commenting. Let me know what your thoughts on this are, right? I just did some major kind of modifications to this here car. You know, we just ripped the entire front end off of it, so hope you guys enjoyed. And yeah, hope you all have a good one.